Hi, I'm Duane from Travel by the Book TV, where we explore literary travel, and today I'm in Pittsburgh in the Hill District. When I think of the Hill District and Pittsburgh, I think of August Wilson, playwright and author of many plays, including Piano Lesson, Fences, and the famous American Century Cycle. One of the great reasons why Wilson is so great for the show is that he was very specific about where he wrote. He wrote about the Hill, the people and the places in the Hill, and we're going to explore it today. In this episode, we'll get a tour of August Wilson's childhood home. We'll see sights in the Hill District associated with him, and eat at one of his favorite restaurants. We'll stop by the University of Pittsburgh to enjoy the August Wilson Archive at the Hillman Library. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we'll visit the spectacular exhibit at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center.
Sometimes they're yeah.
Two trains running takes
Oh my
place
gosh.
in the diner.
That's like,
at
as
the
a video
Manson
guy,
August
that's
Wilson
cool.
Right.
If you're interested in exploring the Hill and the places associated with August Wilson, there's a great guidebook. It's called August Wilson, Pittsburgh Places and His Life and Plays by Lawrence Glasgow and Christopher Rawson. This book is full of tips and ideas and maps and a lot of great research. Now I'm going to meet with Christopher Rawson right now, and he's going to show me August Wilson's birth house, the August Wilson House, which has now been turned into a community arts center.
Okay, well, this is August Wilson House. It's the house in which he lived his childhood home. He lived here until he was 13. And you see it's landmarked by the city, the state, and nationally. So this is the space that the family has come in to get to their apartment in the back. August's family lived in a two-room apartment up these stairs. 2 rooms, there were 6 children and the 2 adults. There was an outhouse in the back. By the time August was about 8, they gained the 2 rooms upstairs, so they were able to expand a little bit. But this is the main entrance we're using now to August Wilson House, and I'll talk about it a little bit when we get inside where it's not so cold. As a young man, or actually as a kid, August knew he was going to be a writer. He was a reader very early. He was, he loved libraries. He educated himself at libraries. He left school when he was still in the 9th grade and educated himself. And he thought he was going to be a poet. He didn't start writing plays till he was well into his 30s. But then he did start writing plays, and after he'd written several of them, he realized each was set in a different decade of the 20th century. So he thought as he would challenge himself to write a play in each decade of the 20th century, which is what he did, 10 plays, 1 in each decade. And he finished the 10th play just as he was dying early at age 60, just 60 years old, in 2005. He had many other projects on his plate, things he wanted to do, novels. He wanted to publish his poetry, but mainly what he achieved is this 10-play cycle, which some people call the Pittsburgh cycle, but the publishers call the American Century cycle. And the plays are set in different places around the Hill District. One of them is not set in the Hill District. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is set in Chicago, and I asked him why. He said, well, it was my first play on Broadway. I didn't think Pittsburgh was important enough. But the other 9 plays are stuffed with references to all the places, people, events, and so on of the Hill District, a predominantly black section of Pittsburgh in which he grew up. He found the matter of his art in the life that he and other people led in the Hill District in the 40s and 50s. And these were people who had not been the subject of art before. It was complained that his plays were full of people talking and talking for a long time. And the Broadway producers wanted to cut it down. And he said, No, he said, they have a lot to say, and no one has heard them say it before. I had the good fortune to know August for his whole career because I was the theater critic at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, so I was reviewing his plays right from the beginning, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, for the 21 years of his active professional career. And he said to me, somewhere along the line, as we were talking about this house, which was totally derelict, he said, if you guys, meaning Pittsburghers, are ever going to do anything with this house, don't let it be a museum. Make it useful. And so what we've done is turned the house into an art center for the Hill District. The only museum are the 2 rooms that the family lived in when he was young. So the people who came around and made this possible started with Denzel Washington, who was making the film of Fences in the neighborhood here.
How come you ain't never liked me?
Like you? Who the hell said I got to like you? What law is there say I got to like you? Want to stand up in front of my face and ask a damn fool-ass question like that? Talking about liking somebody.
And he got Oprah and Tyler Perry and the Jacksons, other people in his community to contribute. And then we came in with some local foundations and we were able to restore the house, which is tricky. Restoring a house, there's all kinds of regulations you have to follow. And then we have the side yard and the acting space in the back. This area here, with its separate door from the street, was originally Bella's, a little mom and pop grocery store. And it's a little hard to explain. This is really 2 houses. One house built in 1840 over there, and then the house built in 1880 here, and then connected with this little space. And you can see as we travel around the house, when you look at original brick, that's what we've saved from the original house. We have a couple of pictures here on this board that show the house at earlier stages in its restoration. It was really totally derelict and nobody was living here in the late 1990s when we took it over. And this is roughly what it looks like now, what you can see from the outside shots. And here's Denzel when he was here for the groundbreaking. We don't call it a groundbreaking, we call it a ground blessing. And various plans along the way. I like this particularly. This is the rear of the house where the acting area is, which was used, you see the little bulkhead there, was used for the set design for the play 7 Guitars when it was done on Broadway, because August said 7 Guitars takes place in the backyard of the house I grew up in the Hill District. King Hedley II takes place in a different backyard, just a couple of blocks down the block, and you can make a kind of a guess that Fences happened in a house diagonally across the street. That's kind of a guess. I'm the one who actually, in the book you've talked about, started crawling around the Hill District and trying to figure out where in the Hill the different plays took place. And you can be quite precise about 1/3 of the plays of the 10-play cycle, and you've got evidence about another 1/3 of the plays, and then the other 1/3 of the plays you have to just take a guess. They are fictional. The plays are fictional, but they happen in a real place. It all mixed together in August's mind, where he took all the things he'd heard in the Hill District and turned them into fictional stories for the sake of this fabulous cycle of 10 plays. And I'm going to take you in now to the 2-room apartment where the August Wilson family lived. This one that we're walking into now was the bedroom / living room. We've not created it as it was when he lived here, because there'd be a big bed here and a small bed. Daisy, the mother, had the small bed. The father apparently was in and out of the house irregularly, but there was a big bed that August and his siblings slept in, although some of them must have spilled over onto the floor. On the wall, you see a picture of Daisy Wilson, his mother, and August as a boy. Here's where Daisy held reign, which we've recreated. There was nothing in it when we took the house over, but we've furnished it with kitchen furniture from the 40s to replicate what they would have had here probably in the 50s. And you can imagine Daisy at the window looking out in the backyard, seeing the kids play. The door here goes out to that staircase on the outside. That was their only entrance into this apartment because there was no door at the other end. It was self-contained here. This staircase was added later when they got the 2 rooms up above and added it to the apartment, so they built this extension of the staircase. Originally, when August was born, this would have been a complete wall, and there was a staircase going right to the outside, and they added this extension to get access. The house is not a museum. These 2 rooms are. These 2 rooms are sacred space. People already come from around the world just wanting to put their hands on the bricks of the house where August Wilson spent his first 13 years. So it's really interesting. He had the first 13 years in this house, soaking up what you do as a kid, in and out of backyards, et cetera, et cetera. There's a library a block away around the corner. And then a little later, he spent 13 years as a young adult living in different apartments, having different kinds of jobs, working as a poet, knowing other writers and activists in the Black arts, Black Power movement, gradually discovering perhaps he was a playwright. And then when he was 33, he moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, where he lived for some years, and then he moved to Seattle, where he lived for some years. But he continued writing about his experience in and of Pittsburgh.
While the August Wilson House will accept donations and contributions of any kind, one easy way to participate and to help them out is to buy a brick. If you go to the website, you could buy a brick, and it'll be placed here in the house. They're hoping to have 1,000 eventually. They range anywhere from $100 to $1,000.
His August's oldest daughter, Sakina, and his widow, Constanza.
Thurgood Marshall family. He said that when you buy one for $100, they only really see about $30 of that based on the cost of the making the bricks and the installation. So if you can afford more, I encourage you to do it.
This is the space that in August's lifetime in this house was a kind of scruffy backyard. And we've already produced 3 plays out there. Most recently, this past summer, we had a production of Jitney where we built a stage at this end. You see the lighting towers. Yeah. We get about 180 people into the backyard. We've done 7 guitars. And we'll continue to do an August Wilson play every summer. A few years ago, 7 guitars was taking place at this space, the audience surrounding it, in the space that August imagined the play has taken place. It was an extraordinary experience. So we've announced now that on Saturdays and Wednesdays from 10 to 3, it's going to be available for tours, but you have to email us and get a specific time assigned to you, and we'll have curators here who will do a kind of tour much more thorough than what I just did for you.
So August Wilson has been a key figure in American theater since the mid-1980s. But I imagine that he will become even more and more important and prominent as the years go by and we assess his work. I believe that when we talk about the greatest playwrights of the 20th century, we talk about Eugene O'Neill, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, but I think August Wilson is up there with them, if not, more significant. And I think as time goes by, he'll definitely always be considered one of America's all-time greatest playwrights.
The most important address in the August Wilson plays is 1839 Wiley Avenue, because that's the home of Aunt Esther, the guru, the wise woman to whom characters can go and find out something about their lives. She appears in only one of the 10 plays, but she's an important offstage character in 3 other of the plays. So her spirit sort of pervades the plays. So after August died, I don't know why I didn't do it before, I went to look for 1839 Wiley Avenue, afraid I was going to find some, messy little house of recent vintage or something. But what I found instead was a vacant lot, which is 1839 Wiley Avenue, because of the addresses on the old house to the right and not quite so old houses to the left. It's hard to imagine there being a real house here in Aunt Esther's time. Doesn't matter. It's a fictional place. And it was a warm day in the summer when I first came here, and you were sweating down here in the street. I walked up those staircases to the top of the hill. When I got to the top, near that tree up there, I turned around and faced south and got a cool breeze relieving me from the heat down below. But as I turned around and looked over the buildings to the south, I was looking right down the valley of the Monongahela River, which flows up from the south through West Virginia into Pennsylvania. I was looking in the direction of the south, where the black inhabitants of Pittsburgh mainly came from during the Great Migration of the early 20th century. So I was standing on a spot that felt real and important. Now, was August Wilson actually thinking of this spot when he named Aunt Esther's address as 1839 Wiley Avenue? August Wilson was always thinking about everything. So I went to my history book and looked up 1839, and I discovered it was the date of the Amistad slave ship rebellion. So an important date in African American history, in the history of America trying to deal with its own racism. So it seems to me a reasonable reason for him having chosen that address. But was he thinking of this space? So it's something beautiful in a way and perplexing in a way. It adds to the mystery of August Wilson's plays. People who own the land now have built a little memorial to Aunt Esther off on the left here, and that there's a framework there that usually has a red door in it, because her house was said actually to have a red door.
The red door is in need of repair here. Unfortunately, I've kind of come in autumn, and so the red door would normally stand right here, and you would knock 3 times on the red door and hope Aunt Esther is able to attend to you. This is just in a sad state right now, probably because there was snow and storms, but under all these leaves is a mosaic celebrating August Wilson, celebrating Aunt Esther. So it's worth coming up and seeing, but in better weather, it's probably the people who own this property probably clear it off. Hopefully when you come, it'll be better weather than it is today.
You can get a sense of the importance of Aunt Esther from her presence in Gem of the Ocean, where she appears, and from the other plays where she's an offstage character. But you really just have to listen to her name. Aunt Esther, Aunt Esther, Aunt Esther. Keep saying it, Aunt Esther, and you understand it's ancestor. She is the ancestor of the people in the plays. And in all the plays, it's reckoned that her birth date was in 1619, which sounds silly, which sort of replicates her importance. But then you go back and look at the 1619, and we know what that date was. That was the date of the first shipment of people who turned out to be the first black slaves in the original 13 colonies brought to Virginia in 1619. Aunt Esther is the ancestor for Black America. She is the history of Black America, and she tells that history in poetic ways in the course of the plays.
Using Christopher's book as a guide, I set out to explore the Hill myself. Though many of the buildings that were part of Wilson's time here are now gone, I found the Hill was filled with sites dedicated to his memory. I read that you have a little August Wilson display here somewhere?
We do. So if you go all the way to the back in the right room, it's in there.
Excellent. Okay, it's lunchtime, and we're going to take a restaurant recommendation from August Wilson himself. This is the original Oyster House. It's been around since 1870. It's the oldest restaurant in Pittsburgh. And here in Pittsburgh, one of their signature meals is a fish sandwich. And that's what I want.
So the Oyster House was established in 1870, and we've been running as an oyster house in this location for 152 years. We're the oldest bar and restaurant in the city of Pittsburgh. The bar side of our establishment is a designated historic landmark, and we just celebrated our 152nd anniversary October 12th of this year. And what's really unique about the Oyster House is, especially for how long we've been around, 152 years, there's only been 5 families that have owned it. And it's a part of history. The tile walls, the ceramic on the tile floors, this is all the original. All of the flooring, it was hand laid, but cement and a boxing glove. And it's very unique. And to me, it's something that needs to be preserved and needs to be taken care of and needs to be recognized.
Okay, this is right in the side here. We have the owner here and a bunch of his old favorite kind of noted Pittsburghians, including August Wilson right there, eating a fish sandwich. So that's what we're going to have because, I can't write great plays, so I might as well eat great fish sandwiches. I've ordered a couple of the famous delicacies. The famous fish sandwich, which is giant. And they're called Pittsburgh taters. They're just locally made fries. They're good and salty. And that's good fish. That's a good batter. Yeah, and the vinegar is a good touch. And that is really nice fish. I could see why August Wilson would come here and eat here. And I recommend you do too. My next stop is at the University of Pittsburgh's Hillman Library, where I'm going to meet with the librarians in charge of the August Wilson Archive. We are in the Hillman Library at the University of Pittsburgh, and I have Ed Galloway and Dial Thomas. I'm sorry, I'm getting Dial wrong every time. And Dial Thomas, and they're going to introduce themselves and talk to me a little bit about the August Wilson Archive here at the Hillman Library at the University of Pittsburgh.
I'm Ed Galloway. I'm the Associate University Librarian for Archives and Special Collections here at the University of Pittsburgh Library System.
Excellent. And
I'm Dial Thomas. I'm the Outreach and Community Engagement Curator for the August Wilson Collection.
Excellent. And can you tell me here about the August Wilson collection?
August Wilson Archive came to us in October of 2020. So right in the midst of the pandemic is when we were working with the estate to finalize the details of the acquisition and have the collection shipped from Seattle, Washington, where you may know August Wilson resided with his wife Costanza for the longest time. It was transported here to Pittsburgh. in October. A year, 450 boxes and containers arrived in a dedicated 18-wheeler. And we have spent the last 2 years unpacking that, processing that material, sorting it, and preparing it for research use. And the collection will open for all researchers in January of 2023.
I think one of the most exciting things of the collection is Wilson's notebooks. So he would, take notes, start his writing process in yellow legal pads. So we have over 700 of those in the collection. But it's really interesting to go through those notebooks, and you can see him playing with character names, playing with dialogue. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you see his to-do list, sometimes you see a phone number. But I think those are really interesting to start to dig into what are the origins of these characters and stories. We have scripts, we have drafts of scripts, fragments. We have playbills, which I always find really interesting to see, how different productions chose to represent the play. We have Wilson's artwork. So we have, art that he created himself, often self-portraits, doodles. We have some 3D objects. My personal favorite is roosters. So many fans would send Wilson like glass or ceramic roosters inspired by 7 guitars. And so we have about, I believe, 30 of those in the collection. We have some 3D objects. We have awards. So we have his 2 Pulitzer Prizes. He has many honorary degrees. We have his diploma from the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. So Wilson did not graduate from high school, but he spent so much time at the library that they actually awarded him a diploma.
As you can see in our space here, we have wonderful gallery space, and it allows us to showcase our materials on a rotating basis. One of our cases has been devoted to August Wilson, where we will always have something from his collection on display for the public to see. Also interesting in this collection is what you don't know about Wilson as a poet, right? He started as a poet. He wanted to be a poet. And so we have half a dozen boxes or so related to his earliest poetry and he continued to write poetry throughout his life. So that'll be a window that the world has not seen into Wilson because it's not been published. But long before we set out to acquire the August Wilson archive, we already were building a literary and performing arts collection around the African-American experience here in Pittsburgh. And so Wilson is a natural part of that. Yeah. So Wilson is not here as a vacuum. It's because he is part of a context of what was happening during the Black Arts movement in the 1960s and 70s that we have been documenting here in the University Library System.
Yes.
And I think when we were able to show that to so many people, especially the estate, I think I think it made sense.
All items in the August Wilson collection are available for you to explore. But please take time to check out the other interesting items on display. As a bibliophile, I found the wide range of exhibits at the library's galleries very interesting. They're well worth your time to see. When I visited, they had an exhibit of one of my favorite filmmakers, George Romero, creator of Night of the Living Dead. So how would I be able to come and...
So all of our collections and archives and special collections are open to the public. We are open not just to the University of Pittsburgh staff and students and faculty, but to the general public. Our hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We require appointments, or we certainly encourage appointments so that we can expect your arrival, but you are certainly welcome to just walk in the door.
As part of our August Wilson tour here, and a must-do is the August Wilson African American Culture Center.
So I'm Duane Clark. I am a volunteer here at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center. So what you're about to see here is the first exhibit of its kind, the first permanent exhibit to be dedicated to August Wilson. And it's going to take you through the history of the plays, the American Century Cycle in itself, which were the majority of plays I did, as well as the inspiration and themes behind those plays.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your tour.
Yeah. No, I already know this is Eddie's.
Yes, so this is Eddie's Restaurant. It is a cafe that existed during the between the 50s and 70s in the Hill District here in Pittsburgh. This is very influential because of the idea that it's where August Wilson did a lot of his writing, especially early in his career, before he really put his first play out.
Shots. These projections are amazing. They're so cool. This jukebox was used in the Broadway production of Two Trains Running at the Walter Kerr Theater in 1992.
So in this next room over here, you have the office. The desk that you see right here is actually the same desk that he would have used. It was provided to us through the August Wilson estate, and you'll see that through a lot of the items that we'll have here as well, such as the jukebox that was in the room for the cafe. The books that you see behind glass as well, and these kinds of different things that you're seeing were all things that he had in his collection before he died, and as well as other things that you'll see for actually some of the things that you'll see through the other rooms were actually used in productions of plays that he did. Sometimes there we go. Yeah.
Two Trains Running takes
Oh my
place
gosh.
in a diner.
That's like,
at
as a
the
video
Manson
guy,
August
that's
Wilson
cool.
Right. The title is from a blues song. This play is set at the end of a violent decade. Many people felt the civil rights movement had failed. Wilson wanted to show that by 1969, nothing had changed for the black man.
I never heard of August Wilson before I was in high school, and it was my 11th grade English teacher had us read different August Wilson plays. We read Jitney, we read Fences, and we read King Hedley II. And I loved the fact that they took place here. I loved the fact that they, compared to a lot of other plays that I read, even before that, after that, it seemed less. It was very dramatic, but it was a realistic kind of dramatic. It was very down to earth. It was very accessible. It was very much relatable in that kind of sense, and especially the way that August Wilson talks about family and like not having like a certain kind of connection with like your direct family or that kind of complication between, like, for example, like father and son and stuff like that.
All right, I'm going to go through this tour. This is decade by decade, each play in the cycle, starting in the 1900s with Jim of the Ocean. And we already talked about Aunt Esther's Red Door, and they have it right here. So I'm really looking forward to it. The display celebrating the century cycle was so fascinating, I finally stopped filming so I could just enjoy it. You don't want to miss this well-designed, informative exhibit. All right, I'm back in Eddie's Cafe. I hope you've enjoyed our tour of August Wilson's Pittsburgh. I'm Duane Anderson from Travel by the Book. Keep reading, keep traveling, and keep watching.